I mean, this is really tragic turn of events all around. We know that Leslie Scarlett had a criminal history. He did 6 years in prison for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon when he was younger. He got out in 2013, seemed to stay out of trouble, had a misdemeanor domestic violence related conviction in 2017, and then for all intents and purposes kind of went on with his life until January. In January, there was a house fire across the street from where Leslie was living with his girlfriend, and it was the house of his mother and her boyfriend, his stepfather. We learned that that night of the fire, Leslie Scarlett came running out of his house and went running into the burning house and carried both his mother and stepfather out. They both subsequently died. He spent about a month in the hospital. He was burned pretty badly, about 80% of his body. And then things started to go downhill from there, it seems like. In March, late March, police were called to his neighborhood for reports of a man walking into front yards yelling, "Fire, fire." When they arrived, he didn't respond to officers. He didn't seem to recognize that they were there, so they attempted to detain him. There was a brief struggle. They got him in handcuffs, and the girlfriend came out and said that he had been struggling since the death of his parents. She believed he had some PTSD, and he was taken for a mental health evaluation.
Criminal history and mental health, and then one of your recent stories featured crisis response. So
Yes.
he was on somebody's radar, so to speak, but how closely does law enforcement work with crisis response to say, hey, you've got the same name, we've got a name over here, let's divide and conquer some of our information?
So not closely enough. So the police chief tells me, and it seems that that was the problem here. So police recognized, when they went to his house in March, they could certainly arrest him if they wanted to, but clearly this was a man in mental crisis. So they took him to our local crisis response center, which is a 24/7 facility that law enforcement can drop people off for evaluations for their mental health. But they don't know what happened to him from there because there really isn't a great communication system in place. Police only really learn about somebody if they flag some triggers in their system. So if he became violent, if there were more calls for service, if they needed to call and respond to criminal activity, or if he was court-ordered for treatment and refused it, which did not happen in this case. So because Leslie Scarlett was no longer a criminal nuisance, police don't really know what happened to him.
There's a lot of your reporting that doesn't make it into the story or the headline. Moving forward, what sorts of conversations are all these agencies having to say, we can't let this happen again?
So there has been some discussion in the past, and we're looking into it again, of co-locating the crisis line, which is where people can call for welfare checks, evaluations, that sort of thing, into the public safety communications department, so that when a call comes in either to 911 or the crisis line, they can share information. And that way the crisis line will know if they should perhaps have an officer come out and be on standby a block away, or officers will know if they're responding to a call that actually should have a mental health specialist with them at that call, perhaps instead of law enforcement. So that's something that Police Chief Magnus has stressed that he really wants to move forward with. It's the city, so, government moves slowly. But open communication, I know, is something that they're hoping for.
And are there enough people? I mean, you talk about resources and why don't you create these intervention programs, but is there staff?
No, that's the other problem. TPD would love to be able to put social workers in patrol cars, but they don't have the funding to hire those social workers. It's not in the city budget, so we're really quite limited. And it needs to trickle down not just from, the county or the city. We need this to happen at the state level. We put millions of dollars into justice services, not just prisons and jails, but the court system. But that funding for mental and behavioral health is just not there. It's the same, there's not enough money to go around. Same thing with education. But we're at a really critical time where I think people are starting to understand that mental health and substance use disorder is not criminal. It is a public health issue, and we need the funding to treat it as such.
Okay, Caitlin Schmidt from the Arizona Daily Star, thank you for your reporting.
Thanks.